Hi. Hi, Kate.
Hi,
How are
Simon.
you?
Very well, thank you. Very well.
Good. Good. And welcome everybody to our channel, Holographic Health. And as we said last week, our intention with this channel really is to share the conversations that Kate and I have, both as holistic health coaches, and really to share these conversations with you in the hope that they're informative and interesting.
Mm.
So today, Kate, what I'd really love to hear from you more about, because it's something I know a little about,
Mm.
um, is the heart-brain coherence that Joe Dispenza particularly teaches about. And I know you've been to several of his workshops and are one of his
Mm.
students. So I thought you were really kind of well qualified here just to share a lot more about that, because I find it absolutely fascinating, and
Mm.
from what I understand is really fundamental to our health. So I thought that would be a really good opening conversation for today.
Yeah, for sure. And it is a really fascinating thing because, I mean, I'm not a scientist or anything like that, but when I was first going to Joe Dispenza events, sort of around 2011, I started, and back then, the community of scientists that he was around were sort of non-believers in meditation, in heart coherence, in brain heart coherence, all that kind of thing. So he really set out to bring scientists to the workshops and measure different things. So he brought the Heart Math Institute to one of the workshops that I was fortunate enough to be at. And when you get to the workshop, you don't get to choose. You basically just sort of get put into buckets of, okay, these people will wear the Heart Math Institute monitors for 24 hours. These people will have their brains mapped for however long or what have you. So I got put into the Heart Math bucket of people, which was really great. And the whole premise around it is that I think historically we always thought that the brain was the one, the powerhouse, the center sending all of the messages to the rest of the body, including the heart, so telling the heart what to do. But it's since been proven and shown that the heart actually sends more messages to the brain than that the brain sends to the heart. And I guess what that sort of really means, and I can share briefly my experience at the workshop and wearing the heart monitor, is that when our heart rhythm and beat is coherent, it's sending coherent messages to the brain, and it allows the brain to be coherent and calm, and they sort of work in tandem with each other. And getting into heart coherence is actually really simple, but I don't think it's something many people even know about or use. And so at the workshops it was quite interesting, because the heart math guys were there, and they meet you, and you basically get a monitor strapped on, kind of goes around your chest, and you've got to keep that on for, I think it was actually 48 hours. And to get you into heart coherence to begin with, it's really simple. It's really just taking probably about 5 or 6 deep breaths in and out, and thinking of something that feels really great to you. So it could be thinking of stepping forward towards someone that you really love, or sitting down for your favorite meal, or gazing over a sunset, and just having that nice calm thought and breathing in and breathing out. And the heartbeat becomes really coherent in that exercise. And then the mind starts to calm down, which is a really helpful tool, especially in modern society when we're kind of racing about. And the exercise that we had done was, anyone wearing the heart monitor had to sit in the front row of the workshop, and he would start the meditations by the rest of the room sending love to the people with the heart monitor on. And what was measured in that is that receiving the love and the good intentions from this room full of people, there was a measured response in everyone wearing the heart monitor where their hearts just went naturally into coherence and were all beating regularly and in a really calm, consistent manner. And so that was measured, and you can go and see those kinds of reports on the Heart Math Institute and what have you. But I just found that astonishing, about the heart-brain connection, because we often talk about the gut-brain connection and all that kind of thing, but the heart-brain connection stuff is often overlooked, and it's just really shows how powerful a really simple exercise can be. Yeah.
And Kate, so what would the positive benefits, the consequences be of the heart and the brain being in coherence then?
The main benefit really is it switches on the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest system for those that don't know. And it essentially turns on that nervous system that relaxes the body and allows healing to take place. It calms the mind down. So if you're someone that has anxiety or overactive, over busy mind, it really helps the mind calm, which is on that rest and digest system, so you can digest your food, and so that stress goes down and the body can actually go about cleaning house, and also just allows clarity to come as well if you might be stuck on something, and gives a really nice rhythm to everything that's going on internally. And I guess, what, like we were talking about last week about, why holographic health, it was all about the premise of our internal state then reflects outside of us. And so the heart-brain coherence just ties into that too, because if you're coherent within and your bodily systems are coherent, you start to see more coherence and balance in your life outside of you. So I would say those are the main benefits of actually having those two systems in play. And then it brings the rest of the system online as well. So if your brain and heart are coherent, everything else, it's like a symphony, everything else comes in to play.
Yeah, and I'd like to talk a little bit more about that in a minute or two, about the way that our external experience is affected by that kind of internal experience. But before I do, just I guess from what you're saying, then the opposite's completely true, isn't it? So if there's a lack of coherence, the nervous system goes into the sympathetic state, which is the fight or flight, which is releasing all that chemistry into our system, which in the long term is damaging, and we lose that clarity of thought, and we're stressed. Yeah,
and it gets quite chaotic then, if we're always out of coherence, out of balance.
For sure. And then of course that's going to in the same way reflect in our external experience as well too.
And something I actually learnt last week. I'm studying at university at the moment, and it was the study, and it relates into this, but it was the study of homeostasis and then something called allostasis. And the body is always trying to keep itself in balance, but if we constantly run out of coherence and out of balance and out of stress, our body sort of adapts to the higher level of stress, and it starts to balance at that higher level of stress and chaos, but it's actually not really balancing. It's just reached a higher threshold to keep you going for that little bit longer, which it leads to burnout and anxiety and depression and disease, basically.
Yeah, so another way of saying that would be that people become used to being stressed. That becomes their kind of normal state. And and definitely in my work with clients, that would really correlate with what I hear from people. They just kind of think that's the normal way to be. That's how life is.
Yeah, and I think it'd be great to, I guess, get your perspective as well from an energetic point of view around that, because I know also from doing the workshops and having the Heart Math Institute there, we were also taught to open our heart and really just feel open. And that releases a cascade of things like oxytocin and feel-good hormones that support balance as well. But there's also that, there was a whole spiritual, energetic side to that, because we were receiving energy from the room and opening the heart and allowing and receiving. And so there's the very mechanical nature of the whole thing, but a very big spiritual aspect to that as well.
Yes, for sure. Well, I mean, the fact that we're all connected energetically, I'm not saying anything new there at all. And those kind of experiments just quantify that. You talk to nurses and doctors, but nurses particularly, that will say that patients in hospital that have people praying for them, visiting them, are far more likely to recover than those that are just kind of left alone. So the way that I relate to this, based on what I understand and the work that I do, is that as an energy healer particularly, is that each of us is an energy field. And so I'm saying that we are an energy field rather than we have an energy field. And I'm using that language specifically because the energy field is what we are. We are created by the energy field. We don't create it, but it creates us. So we are primarily this energy field, sometimes referred to as an aura. If you're into sacred geometry a little bit, that's the Merkaba, for example, is a representation of the human energy field. And this energy field is constantly feeding information into us and into our physical body. And when we think of the energy field of each person, we think of it being a certain size and then maybe having an edge to it. And if you see photography, there are certain photographic techniques that can photograph the human energy field. There are people that that ability to see the human energy field as well. You can kind of see that there is an edge to it, or a point at which the human energy field seems to stop. But in reality, there's no edge there. There's no edge of the human energy field where you can say this is where this person's energy field finishes and the rest of the energy of the world, of the universe, starts. It's a little bit like looking at a candle. I've got a candle here. I don't know how good but looking at the candle and saying, okay, with your naked eyes, you can probably say, well, the light from the candle stops X amount of centimeters away from the flame. And depending on the person, that might vary a little bit. But in reality, there's no edge to the flame of that candle. The light of that candle is part of the light of the rest of the world. And we're the same energetically. Yeah. So we're connected with everything, including each other. And also, also what I'd like to add as well too is that our physical, so this energy field is an electromagnetic energy field, and it feeds our bodies, and then our bodies in turn release energy back out. And so there is a receiving of energy and a transmitting of energy, and this energy circulates, and it circulates in what's called a toroidal field.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I know that you're familiar with a toroidal field.
Yeah,
Now,
and I
if I
can
was
speak a bit to that once
yeah.
once you have finished what you're talking about as well, because that was measured at the workshops too. So yeah, I'll share a bit on that
Yes.
in a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, please do. Now, if I was a bit more technical, I'd love to insert into our video here a diagram of a toroidal field, but I haven't worked that out yet. But once we've worked that out, we can start doing things like that. But a toroidal field of energy is basically like a donut shape of energy that moves like this. Now, this movement of energy is seen throughout the whole of reality from all scales, from the molecular through to the actual planet. So the planet Earth has a toroidal energy flow through the north and south pole, like this. If you look at an apple and you cut an apple in half, it looks like that shape because it's a toroidal, it's been created by a toroidal flow of energy. So again, this just kind of echoes back to the use of our word holographic in this channel, this holographic nature of everything, how everything kind of repeats at all scales. So back to us as beings, we too are a toroidal field of energy, and in the center of that, where the energies meet, is our physical body. Yeah, and so there's energy that we're taking in from, and for this conversation, I don't think we need to get into all the different ways that we take energy, and we're releasing energy back out again. But what I want, and again, that's a big topic, but relevant to what we're talking about here. If you look at the human energy field and this torus, most energy is transmitted from the heart. Yeah, this is the biggest electromagnetic field or generator of the human energy field. Yeah, and even more so than the brain, which, as you said before, we used to think the brain, everything was about the brain, but actually it's about the heart. It gives out most energy. So as an energy healer, when I'm doing energy healing for someone, and if I'm placing my hands in their energy field, this is where I'll feel the most energy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. And what you were saying about the energy fields, it reminded me as well there were a lot of scientists at this particular workshop I was at, and there were many there measuring the energy field around the human body as well. They have different machines and what have you, and you'd get measured at the start and at the finish. I think a lot of Russian scientists, because they apparently do this with people before they go into surgery, and if their energy field is too weak, they'll build that up before they do the surgeries and that kind of thing. And it's so fascinating to see it on an image once they produce the imaging, and it's sort of, you've got, these kind of patterns around you, and you sometimes see a break in that pattern, so you can see sort of a weakness in that energy field. And what you were sort of saying about, okay, you can kind of see the image might end here, but it's not that your energy ends there. It just sort of, I guess, dissipates and melds into the rest of the environment around you and what's going on. And it's so fascinating that just by doing nothing else than sitting on your ass for a week, meditating and feeling love and receiving love, how that energy field expands and joins back up, and how much healthier that looks afterwards. And I always find the science of that stuff quite fascinating. But also from a chemistry point of view, just sort of what you were talking about with just how we are made up and energy and all the rest, having recently studied that, it's, when you think about it, everything that is known to us is just atoms that are electromagnetically drawn to each other and creating the table in front of us, or you know, whatever it is around us. And it's literally, that kind of blows my mind, because it might be a glass or a table, but it's just atoms that have attracted to each other to form this particular compound. So when you think about it like that, everything is completely connected, and have just been drawn to each other to form different things that we see with our eye as a particular product or whatever it is, you know.
And everything that we experience, whether we experience it as something solid that we can see, or whether we experience it through one of our other senses, like light or a sound or a taste or whatever, or even a feeling, it's all made of the same stuff. I mean, you're using the word atoms. I'm not 100% sure that atoms even exist, or that atoms are the kind of building blocks of all this. But yeah, I know where you're coming from. I mean, I think of it more in terms of vibrations, you know, and it's not that there's actually anything vibrating. That's the crazy thing to wrap your head around. It's not like there's this very, very, very minuscule piece of something that is vibrating. It's just a vibration, isn't it? And through our senses, we interpret those vibrations into these different realities that we experience.
Yeah, and I think energetically as well, it's sort of about, you know, what you were saying to you about the torus field and what have you, and some of the measurements again at the workshops I was going to at the time. It was measuring the energy in the room, and at the beginning of the workshops, the energy goes down because everyone's drawing energy, everyone's overcoming themselves. They've come with their stresses or their worries or their whatever, and they're drawing from the room. And then as the week goes on, you start to see the energy in the room go through the roof, because you start to draw energy back, and you create this torus field of giving energy, and in the giving it comes back. So you have this lovely giving and receiving that starts to amplify and radiate out across the room, and then you know, which is really, really quite special.
It is, and that's so interesting, because we tend to think in terms of our physical experience as there being limits to resources. But energy isn't like that. It's limitless. And as you were just saying there, you know, how there can be a building up and an increasing in levels of energy. And so from a kind of traditional mind that thinks in terms of the physical world, you'll think, well, where's that coming from? It has to come from somewhere. But actually, it was being created, wasn't it? You know, that increase in energy. And this, I think this could be a good opportunity to move the conversation into something we were just talking about a little bit earlier, which is food. And Jo, is there anything else that you wanted to say about the heart-brain coherence, or do you feel that
No, not so much. And it just, if anyone is interested in any more information, it's readily available on the HeartMath Institute, and it's really interesting to look at, and something you could really easily introduce into your life. So I'd encourage people to have a look at that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And for me, Joe Dispenza really stands out as one of the, for me, a really significant teacher. And there's so much available, just even for free online, you know, to of his talks and workshops and stuff. Incredible. And actually, just before we do move on, it also reminds me of a talk that I listened to a while ago by Greg Braden, who is a peer colleague of Joe Dispenza. He's kind of he's in a similar field, isn't he?
He is,
where science and spirituality really kind of come together. That's how I think of people like that. And it just reminded me of a talk Greg Braden was giving, where he was talking about bringing the brain, the heart, and the gut into coherence. This actually, when we do that, so the gut really represents our kind of our emotions, yeah. And when we bring our thoughts, our feelings, and our emotions into alignment, then we become incredible manifestors, yeah, because these three really give out so much energy between them. These three are creating this field of energy, and when those three are absolutely in alignment, then we're giving out such a focused, energetic message that must be mirrored back to us, through our experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're talking about this energy field, and how this can be monitored, how it can be measured, and if those energy levels are low, then we can build those energy levels back up, and how those energy levels are reflected. You didn't say this, so I'm just kind of adding to that.
Yeah.
How those energy levels are reflected in our physical health. So our physical health is very much a consequence, I suggest, of these. So you started talking to me earlier about thinking about food in terms of its energetic value, not so much its calorific value or its nutritional value, which are the traditional ways that we might think about food, but more energetically. So I don't know, maybe you'd like to speak a bit more about that.
Yeah, for sure. And it was just it's something that I think about quite often. It was just sort of a moment of, I have quite a deep affinity with the earth and the planet and soil. And when I can, I'm kind of on the move at the moment, but I love to grow my own food. And I was sitting the other day and I got this organic box delivered and I was eating a mandarin and it was just so incredibly delicious. And I just really went to the thought of the energetics of the food, not the calories or the vitamins and minerals it was giving me or anything like that, although that is energy too. But it was really just this kind of seed to table thought pattern that I went down around just the energy and the journey that this seed has gone through from germinating in soil and the energy it's drawing and using to sprout and grow into a tree, and then all the different systems and insects and all the rest that would have had to come into play to pollinate the flower and the fruit being produced, and then that arriving in front of me to eat. And just, I guess, almost like a reverence for that process and gratitude, and just the thought then about the energetics of what we eat. And also something you'd mentioned too that I think about quite often is mindfulness in preparing what we're eating and the energy we're bringing as we are serving ourselves, or putting love into a meal, or being calm while we're cooking, and how that energetic transfer does actually go into the food and onto our plate. And then we take the food in. So we're taking in that energy. And I guess the sort of more higher vibrational, or the more positive energy behind that is received by the body in a way that's easier to digest, easier to swallow, easier for the body to use, and lighter. And more clarity comes from eating that way and thinking of food that way. So that's sort of just a thought I was having the other day, just from eating something simple like a mandarin, but quite profound, I think.
Yeah, very, very significant, I would say. And I'm also thinking of that Well, first of all, I'm thinking, so whilst you were going through that kind of thought process, when you were eating that mandarin, how did it actually make you feel? What effect would that have on your kind of heart brain
Yeah,
coherence
that's a good
as well?
point, actually. I'm just quite alive, and I'm fascinated by the human condition anyway. Just fascination and felt really alive and kind of in awe, really, of the process that everything goes through. And because growing your own food too, if you grow your own food, you learn a lot, and it doesn't always work out. So that you can just have this delivery of food to your door, it was just, you feel quite alive in that process.
And you know, I would suggest that that actual thought process that you were going through, which would have also stimulated emotions within you and feelings in your body, all of those, as well as the actual mandarin itself, which is a perfect toroidal field if you
It is too, actually.
a lot of fruit, but that's nourishing, isn't it? That's as much a part of the nourishment as the actual, as you say, the vitamins and minerals that, you know, from the food. And yeah, this is for me why eating mindfully is so valuable, you know, as opposed to what we often do if we're not mindful, is that we're just kind of like this and we're looking at the phone or the TV or talk or whatever. So we're kind of, okay, yeah, we may still be getting the nutritional calorific value from the food, but we're not getting all that other potential value which comes from the real appreciation, doesn't it? So that was one thing. And the other thing is that, and again, this is the human. We often think of ourselves as the end of the process. It's all about us because we're so kind of narcissistic. But we're just part of a process. That process doesn't stop with us.
Yeah.
Even the journey of that mandarin doesn't stop with you eating it, does it? You're just part of again, into this holographic nature, you know, that you're just part of a bigger picture in the, you know, that mandarin is going to pass through you. And the energy that you imbue from that, you're going to release in many ways through your actions, through your speech, through your thoughts, etc. And also physically, that's going to pass through you and go back into the, well, ideally, we'll go back into the earth to be part of, you know. So it's I think it's interesting, isn't it, just to expand our minds into you know, the bigger pictures of where we fit in. And
Yeah, it was, we did talk about that last week. It was just inviting people to think, yeah, a little bigger than the insular lives that we can get stuck in. And the thing I love about fruit is it wants to be eaten. So like out in the, you know, in the wild, it's bright and it's ripe and it's saying eat me, you know, and because it wants you to eat it, because it wants you to deposit the seed somewhere else so that a new plant can grow. And it's all part of that cycle that you're talking about. And
absolutely, I mean, nature's perfect, isn't it? So we don't need to interfere. Just like you say, you, the smell and the look of the fruit is just inviting, you know. So we can just kind of follow our instincts and can't go too far wrong. Yeah. Good.
Well, should we?
Good.
I think we've been talking for a little while, so we can probably round it off. I think, so that it's not too long of a listen for people. But is there anything else that you had that you really wanted to share?
No, not particularly, because I was really interested to hear more from you this week about the heart-brain coherence, and just to really introduce that as a topic to people. I mean, I know that you only really kind of touched on it a little bit, but that is something that people can kind of dive deeper into themselves and explore. There's so much available. So no, that was it really.
Yeah, and
For this week. As ever, there's so much that we could talk about, but we need to find a place to start.
I had a thought as well, just to sort of close out the thoughts on the heart-brain coherence piece, that you'd actually, as you were talking, I was thinking, because you were talking about the gut too, and we have a gut brain, we have a whole enteric nervous system in the gut, and that's sending signals everywhere. And what I often find in my work, when people are trying to get something into balance, is that we don't always have to get it all in balance, but balancing 2 out of 3 things brings the other one in line. So sort of if you get your diet and your movement sorted out, it brings your mindset in, or what have you. And so quite often, if you focus on sort of heart-brain coherence, just by proxy, the gut comes online, because you're calming these 2 power, systems down and relaxing everything. So your rest and digest system comes into play, which is your guts involved in that. And so, just focusing on those 2 things simply brings something else online, which I think can help people relax a little bit around their health and trying to get to an outcome. It's just focusing on small steps at a time that can move you in the right direction.
So then could we say that if someone is experiencing a lot of kind of mental stress, anxiety, depression, these kind of symptoms, that those could potentially be addressed through the gut then, and through food?
Absolutely.
Diet.
Yeah.
Right.
And 95% of serotonin is produced in the gut. So, and again, it used to be thought it was all in the brain, and all the recent research is that that's in the gut. So, focusing on good foods going in sends messages up to the brain.
Right.
That helps with things like anxiety and depression. And same, deep breathing and getting your heart into coherence and eating a meal in a relaxed fashion helps calm the mind.
Yeah, those are good points actually, because I was just thinking, okay, what can people that listen to this actually take away from this practically? So we're saying to do some conscious breathing. Meditation's amazing, but even if it's not meditating, just sitting for a minute or 2 and just taking some nice deep conscious breaths.
So 3 deep breaths are just like 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out. That lowers your blood pressure already after 3 deep breaths, and about 5 breaths the heart coherence will come into play, and that's all you really need.
So really, we're telling people here that in 5 breaths, they can really bring themselves into alignment with good health. Really,
absolutely.
It's as simple as that. Yeah, that's amazing. And then if we add to that as a practice, just being kind of more mindful with eating, which to me, if I think about being mindful with eating, there's a slowing down. There's a excluding other activities. So I make eating the thing that I'm doing, that I'm focusing, and I slow down. And then I love what you were saying as well too, is about just allowing your mind to explore the journey of food that you're eating. And how it's come, the people that are involved as well too. So the energy that they've put into it, whether it be the farmers or the people that have been collecting the crops or the fruit or whatever, and I was just thinking then we could start going into something that I also find very, very interesting as well too, is the energy that we put into preparing food and cooking. you know. If we so this mindfulness around food isn't just in the eating, but if you're actually preparing the food, just be really mindful of how you're feeling. You know, so I love cooking and preparing food.
Me
So
too.
I'll put music on. I might even be dancing and singing. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't sound too good, but I enjoy it. And you know, and that energy's going into the food. There's a couple of good movies, aren't there, that really capture this. There's that movie called Chocolat. Did you see
Oh,
that movie?
yes, yes.
Back in the maybe early 90s or something, yeah, with Johnny Depp, and I've forgotten what the name of the woman is that stars in it. Yeah, and everyone that eats her chocolate just kind of like has this real kind of like
Yeah.
heart-opening experience, don't they? And there was another movie, I can't remember the name. I don't know if you have seen this movie. I think it was set in Mexico, and in the the cook in the family, she was like an employed cook, and every time the whole family sat down for a meal, they all kind of started crying and
Oh, yeah.
sharing everything. I don't know, did you ever see that movie?
I haven't seen that one.
It's a really old one. It was good. Yeah.
But yeah, I think we could probably actually delve more into that on another session.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been to Panchakarma in India, and there's a whole process they go through with preparing and serving the food. And I have a story around a Chinese guy that knows the emotional state of the people when he eats the food. But I'll look it up so that I can tell that story.
Okay, well, I'll
Factually
make a note.
correct. Otherwise, I'll just be making it up.
Well, let's save that one then for another talk.
Oh, thank you,
Okay.
Simon. And thanks
Thank you,
all.
Kate. Yeah, thanks so much. Okay, talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.